So in this segment, we're going to be talking about this absolute joker here. He's the Ian Murray, the Society of Editors executive director, who stepped down. This from a couple of days ago, but this is just so embarrassing from this guy who refused to accept that some, the tabloids, some members that work within the tabloids are racist, which is very hard to debate, especially when we saw side to side headlines of, you know, Princess Kate getting praised for one thing, and then Princess Meghan getting criticised for the exact same thing. You know, unless of course these people are jealous, which I wouldn't be surprised about. But if we watch this clip, I've shown it before, but this is just great work from Victoria Derbyshire. The full clip is actually far worse, and we'll be talking about that when we break down an article from The Guardian. But this is just embarrassing.
Themselves. Can I ask you about those headlines again? The Star asked whether Harry would be marrying into gangster royalty.
They asked that because Princess Meghan grew up in a very rough area where there's a lot of crime. So they tried to link that with her. Like, you can't argue that's not, Oh, come on. Like, honestly. I thought it's just because she's mixed race, but no, it's because it's that and because she grew up in a rough area. It's crazy.
I'm not going to defend one headline.
Sorry, Mr. Murray, you just...
His refusal to accept that headline is racist and that there were racially charged headlines about Princess Meghan goes to show you how kind of fraudulent this guy is, and how members of the media do not want to address the fact that they work within an industry that is racist. It's not very hard.
You just told me, excuse me, please may I speak? Please may I...
Sorry, I know I'm pausing this a lot, but this is, again, it's great work from, Victoria Derbyshire here. Honestly, it's great stuff.
Ask the question.
There's a huge amount of coverage.
Mr. Murray, you can continue talking over me, but I want...
One or two examples and say, look, here's something that someone might point to and say, so therefore... That means that
no, you told me, Mr. Murray, you told me the British tabloid press was not bigoted. I've just given you some examples. You're denying that those examples are racist, and I'm asking, why are you denying that?
Well, and I'm making the plain to Victoria that what we're saying, I'm not defending individual things here and there. I'm looking at the whole thing. When you say that someone might make one comment about something, and I'm not saying whether those were bigoted or racist at all.
Well, let me ask you, as the Society of Editors...
I never get the chance to actually finish, Victoria, my point. When you actually label someone as bigoted because of one example that is disputed, and actually say, and not taking the whole thing in the context and saying, look at the way that they have covered it. I'm afraid that's if you keep on looking, you will find that needle in the haystack.
Right, but you just told me that the British press isn't racist, and now you're saying if you keep on looking, you will find a racist needle in the haystack. So let me ask you again, are those headlines racist? Simple yes or no.
I'm not going to stand to defend and say whether they are not. What?
Do you know why he won't do it? Because he knows that if he says they're not racist, he's going to look like a massive idiot. And if he says they are racist, he proves her point. So this is a checkmate situation for him. And, he plays the I'm not going to comment on it because I'm just not.
The context is,
the Society of Editors.
Sorry, Victoria, you know full well, because you are a journalist, you've got to see the context.
Well, let me give you some context then.
The context was she grew up in a rough area, and they've linked that with her. So the Society of Editors, they're meant to, their members are media outlets throughout the country. The universal right to freedom of expression, the importance of the vitality of the news media in a democracy, the promotion of press and broadcasting freedom, the commitment of high editorial standards. Now, when stories come out, right, about when stories are written, generally you have the journalist, the writer, and then it goes to an editor who has to actually allow the story to be published. And then if it shows you how bad the system is that these people got away with not just writing but publishing these stories as well. I did see a separate video where one of the writers for, I think it's like the Telegraph, one of the royal correspondents, she put out a lot of news stories about Meghan Markle, and she also put out one where it claimed that Meghan Markle, Princess Meghan, made Princess Kate cry when, according to Meghan Markle, it was the other way around. And then she said, I don't understand why the palace never corrected me. But, Meghan Markle's point was that she did ask for it to be corrected, but the palace never contacted this particular journalist, which does show you how rotten the system is. But this lady never actually got her story verified properly, which just shows you how these people are. Like, they won't stop unless they're pushed back against. And if we actually look at the specifics from this article here. They talk about the turmoil within the Society of Editors, and this guy resigning was clearly a good step, because he had no intention of dealing with the racism within certain British tabloids and outlets. So if we look here, the media industry body, the Society of Editors, was in turmoil on Tuesday night, with some members of its board said to be deeply angry over a statement it put out claiming that racism was never a factor in the coverage of the Duchess of Sussex, which, something we've spoken about before is, there was racism was a factor. I wouldn't be surprised if jealousy was also a factor. More than 160 journalists of colour and the editors of The Guardian, Financial Times and Huffington Post have objected to the statement written by the SOE's, the Society of Editor, Executive Director Ian Murray, which argued that Meghan's claims that parts of the media were racist were not acceptable, when we know that they are. And he's basically accepted that in that interview with Victoria Derbyshire, where he talked about a needle in the haystack. He accepted that at least that specific journalist and arguably that specific editor were racist. Following the backlash, discussions were underway over the publication of a new statement intended to address the concerns, but The Guardian understands the SOE's board was split over the wording of that statement, with a dispute over the phrasing of a possible apology and some urgently demanding a clear change in tone. So you can see that the Society of Editors board wanted to put something out to kind of pacify the situation, but they couldn't actually figure out what they wanted to say, because the issue is, do you acknowledge that racism is part of the British media? And if that's the case, your boy Ian Murray proves himself to be a fraud, and you prove yourself to have not done enough to deal with racism? Or do you say that there's no racism and you look like even bigger frauds? Like, there's no winning here, there's no way out. The SOE draws from members of nearly 400 national and regional outlets, and says that its members are as different as the communities and audiences they serve. They share the values that matter. The board split came after 168 journalists, writers and broadcasters of colour from across the British media wrote an open letter describing the SOE's initial statement as a laughable proof of an institution and an industry in denial. And the thing is, if the Society of Editors actually came out and said, look, there are issues within certain members of the press, and we are going to be dealing with it, by outing these people, I would have said, fair play to them. But the fact that they didn't want to acknowledge that there's racism at play here, despite people knowing that there is racism in the press. Look at what they did to Raheem Sterling and other black and minority celebrities. Look at it, honestly. Murray said on Monday that the claims were not acceptable and made without supporting evidence, insisting that the UK media has a proud record of calling out racism, which isn't true, by the way, they don't. In a piece headlined, UK media not bigoted, he said the tone of tabloid coverage, this is where it gets really bad, was driven by holding a spotlight to those in positions of power, celebrity and influence. And the question we need to ask ourselves is, well, surely if you're looking at those in positions of power, you should be shining a spotlight within the palace and their reaction to a lot of the reactions of the stories that have broken out. But you're not doing that. You're not interviewing people like Princess Kate, the Queen, etc., saying, someone in the palace said that, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's son's skin colour may be an issue. We still don't know who that person is yet, and I want to know who that person is. It's a joke. Many signatories from people from The Guardian, Metro, Grazia, I've not heard of them, Channel 4, say they deplore and reject the SOE's defence, which they argue shows a willful ignorance of not just the discriminatory nature treatment of Meghan, but that of other people from ethnic minority backgrounds. And, if the Society of Editors will not come out and talk about the racism here, which is pretty brazen, when will they talk about it? Which I wanted to, I wish she asked that guy, can you point to me to a headline that is racist, and, to reel off various racist headlines, because I want to see where this guy draws the line. The letter concluded the Society of Editors should have used the comments by the Sussexes to start an open and constructive discussion about the way to prevent racist coverage in future. The blanket refusal to accept there is any bigotry in the media is laughable and does a disservice to journalists of colour and shows an institution and industry in denial. And I couldn't say it better myself. It does show an institution in denial about the situation. Rola Khalaf, the editor of the Financial Times, also disagreed with the statement. There is work to be done across all sectors in the UK to call out and challenge racism, she said. The media has a critical role to play, and editors must ensure that our newsrooms and coverage reflect the societies we live in. In a BBC interview on Tuesday, one that we've cited, Murray defended the statement and reiterated that he felt negative coverage of Harry and Meghan had been balanced by earlier positive coverage. A bit of a joke. We've said nice things about him, now we have to say mean things about him. What a clown. He responded to the suggestion that the Straight Outta Compton headline was an example of the problem by saying, I'm not au fait completely with the areas of California. That means he's not up to date, fully knowledgeable about the areas of California. So because she grew up in an area with crime, therefore, and she's mixed race, therefore she must be a criminal. Is that what the argument that that newspaper was going for? That he's marrying into a gangster family? Because she's from she was born in an area with a lot of crime, and she's mixed race, therefore she must be a criminal. Like, come on now, honestly. Others suggested that the statement suggested a failure to grapple with the underlying structural issues that have identified as a factor in coverage that goes well beyond the royal couple. Absolutely pains me to say that my industry has been in denial about institutional racism for all the 2 decades I've been in it, said Sathnam Sanghara, a columnist at the Times. And, it does show you how, willing that these people are to just lock up and, not address the situation here. Very similar to the government in that respect, that we can see that there are issues within the media. And, if they were actually willing to deal with it, they could be open and honest about this, like other industries have been, and actually deal with it and, get rid of some of these, racist, journalists, writers and editors that have allowed this to happen. But instead they've showed up, and it makes them look more stupid. And, big credit to Meghan Markle. Without even realising it, she's taken up both Piers Morgan and this absolute clown here. So, credit to her, because she's got, she's taken out 2 people here. But the thing is, this should never have happened. She should never have been put in a situation where she was a victim of, racially charged abuse by the press, who have targeted her because of who she is. It's a joke, an absolute joke. But, I'm glad, this dude, Ian, whatever his name is, and, Piers Morgan have gone. And also the fact that, the media at some point now are going to have to address the situation. They're going to have to address it, because the longer they leave this, so long as pressure stays on from the public and from these journalists and outlets, this board, the Society of Editors, will have to address this, hopefully at some point soon, in order to deal with the problems of society. And it's not just about representation, it's about ideology. This guy could have been any gender or any minority, and he could have said the exact same thing, because at the end of the day, your race and gender doesn't define your ideology, it's what you believe inside. And so it could have been anyone. It's not enough to just put someone, a minority, in where this guy was before. You have to put someone who does genuinely understand that there is racism within the tabloid press and is willing to root it out and to call it out. That's what we really need here. But anyways, I've rambled on long enough. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.